As a graduation gift to themselves, 124 Alabama high schoolers head to a tropical island paradise in May 2005. All but one student shows up at the airport to head back home days later, sparking one of the most high-profile missing person cases of the past 20 years, with a killer stepping forward in 2023, claiming responsibility, bringing an end to a mystery that catapulted the true crime genre into what it is today. My name is M. William Phelps. I'm an investigative journalist and true crime author. I've dedicated the past 20 years of my life to helping families of the missing and murdered. Join me. We're crossing the line.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here with us this morning. My name is Prim Escalona, and I'm the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama. I'm going to make a brief prepared statement. Today marks the end of 18 years of wondering what happened to Natalee Holloway. Now, Beth and Dave can rest, and Natalee can rest, knowing that justice was served.
For those who have been involved in true crime for a few decades, a handful of cases kind of define the genre. Call them iconic, high-profile, historic even. These are the cases marking the cultural landscape of the genre. JonBenet, Dahmer, Gacy, Bundy, hell, even OJ. Among those, there is one case which, I think, propelled true crime into the stratosphere, creating such a swell of coverage in real time as it unfolded. There was not one television news outlet at the time you could turn on and not hear something about it. This was back in the day when loudmouth Nancy Grace was a flame-throwing fixture on daily primetime cable television. Court TV was rocking and rolling along, and most nightly cable news programming wasn't focused on politics, as it is today, but unfiltered, talking head, true crime content. This particular case, I might also add, exposed the ugly side of how America covered true crime as well, which still pervades airwaves to this day. And I'll get into that part of this story a little later on. But I want to start with the bullet points of this enormous case first, with one major update taking place this past year, finally bringing an end to what has been an enduring, heart-wrenching mystery for decades. It all begins rather innocent enough. A high school class trip to paradise, Aruba, which is part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the southern Caribbean Sea. On May 26, 2005, 7 adult chaperones and 124 students arrive in Aruba for a senior class graduation trip. They are staying at the Holiday Inn Resort on the northern end of the island. The Holiday Inn is situated on Palm Beach, literally yards away from the water. Among the group of seniors is well-liked and popular, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, 18-year-old Natalee Holloway. Such an iconic name in true crime, I am sure, conjures instant memories for fanatics of the genre. Natalee's stepfather, George Twitty, is a prominent Alabama businessman. Her mother, Beth Holloway, a spitting image of her beautiful daughter. Beth divorced Natalee's father, David Holloway, in 1993. Natalee was born and raised in Mississippi and later moved to Alabama with her mom and Twitty after the divorce. She was a wonderful child, family has said, a regular member of the National Honor Society, a prominent figure on the high school dance team, and deeply involved in a host of extracurricular activities kids with big plans for a big college and big career often get involved in. Mountain Brook is a 3-year high school, smack dab in the middle of one of Birmingham, Alabama's most wealthiest suburbs. Classmates adore Natalee, who is known to be a friend to just about every kid in the graduating class. She is one of those students others look to and depend on, and is nothing family members later said, if not fervently dependable. Even at such a young age, Natalee had traveled the world and is set to attend the University of Alabama with a full academic scholarship. One of her biggest passions in life is Natural Helpers, a peer support group. She is also a volunteer with several community outreach programs. Natalee, same as most of the graduating class, is looking forward to blowing off years of high school steam in Aruba. One uncle later talked about how Natalee did not date a lot, wasn't a party girl per se, attended church regularly, and was, by no fault of her own, a bit naive when it came to life in general outside that bubble of her Mountain Brook school, friends, and family. This, relatives added, gave Natalee an almost childlike side to her, however sincere and genuine it was. She's 18, still so young and seemingly fearless, which is why, on May 30, when the other 123 students arrive with their luggage at the airport to fly back home to Alabama after that brief trip, and Natalee is nowhere to be found, everyone begins to worry almost immediately. It is just so not like her not to be on time. She's responsible. They knew she would have been there if she could have been. Keep in mind, the internet age is still young, but also now part of daily life, which those high-profile cases before Natalee did not have driving the coverage. So there's the difference. Overnight, once a report of an American student from Alabama is missing on a class trip to Aruba, this thing explodes on the internet and is soon picked up by every major news outlet and agency in the world. I cannot underscore how big this story became over those first 48 hours. Millions and millions and millions of people tune in to watch every move of a mystery growing with intensity and interest in front of us on television, literally all day long and all night long. America is then primed for a moment-by-moment crime story. One of the reasons is the infamous O.J. Simpson white Bronco chase from the 90s. The media wants another Bronco chase story, live coverage of a big crime unfolding in front of our eyes as it happens. You know, when O.J. Simpson fled inside that white Bronco with his friend who was driving, and news cameras followed the vehicle, I mean, many Americans, I think, felt like they were part of this story, you know. We're watching this thing unfold in front of us in real time, and it's riveting. When Natalee went missing and coverage began with images of the search, canines sniffing up and down the beach, her parents making pleas for her return, rumors of her being kidnapped, trafficked, fed to the sharks, and news conferences happening daily from the island, it became a story no one could turn away from. My belief has always been that had she been a minority from an urban area high school and not a white girl from a wealthy Alabama suburb, things would have been very different. Yet none of the controversy that would later become associated with this case diminishes the fact that a young American girl, respected and loved by so many, had not shown up at the airport to go home and was presumed to be in big trouble. Fear grew worse when authorities in Aruba, who could have handled this case a lot better than they did, I'll say that. I mean, you know, we're not talking the LAPD here. When they got into Natalee's hotel room and found her packed luggage and, even scarier, her passport. It was as if she had been plucked from the room while in the process of leaving for the airport, or had packed the night before and never returned. Either way, something terrible had happened. That was pretty damn clear. And I think, really, everyone watching knew it. Then more bad news. 3 of Natalee's classmates claimed to have seen her at what was called Carlos and Charlie's restaurant and nightclub, about 5 miles south of the Holiday Inn, the previous night near 1:30 a.m. And get this. They said she was drunk and she was leaving the club with 3 young guys, local dudes. identified almost within the first 24 hours as 17-year-old Dutch national Joran van der Sloot and two brothers, Deepak Kalpoe and Satish Kalpoe, 21 and 18. And they kind of lived on the island, whether they're going to school, what they're doing. A young, naive student from Alabama leaving a nightclub with three locals who, come to find out, do not have the greatest reputations, mind you, is a very bad sign. Coverage exploded after this revelation. And I can tell you from my own experience of living through the case, everyone believed the worst right away when images of these three began to saturate our television screens. Especially van der Sloot, who had this smug look about him, as if he'd done something to the girl. He was playing it up. Nobody liked this clown. The chatter from the talking heads on true crime television night after night, as the story kept building and building, was that bad things had happened to this young girl. These three knew something. Aruban authorities were losing important investigative time and not making these three talk. The worst possible outcome was being discussed hourly on television. And this must have been hell for Natalee's parents and family. It went from sex trafficking to murder to strange island rituals, I even recall, then kidnapping. Then she was taken hostage and hidden somewhere. If there was a theory, we heard about it on television, which just added another layer of mystery and confusion to the case. The Aruban government steps up as pressure mounts and they realize they need to do something. Thousands of civil servants on the island are given the day off to help search for Natalee. The world is watching. The U.S. government wants answers, as do, of course, Natalee's parents. Joran van der Sloot and his cronies, the Kalpoe brothers, are then brought in and questioned. The perp walk images of these three dominate the airwaves, giving the story even more gravity. Now we have someone to blame. Now we have a face to put evil on, right? The three of them claim they met Natalee at Carlos and Charlie's, the club, and drove her from the club to the Holiday Inn, dropping her off out front. And they had not seen her since the time she got out of the car and started walking toward the hotel. We all know the last person or persons to be with the victim of a crime is most likely to know what happened. And the fact that these three had said so little made them look even more suspicious. But they weren't done talking. Within a few days, van der Sloot and the Kalpoe brothers' story changes. Okay? Now they claim to have given Natalee a ride from the nightclub to a nearby beach and hung out together on the beach. And then Natalee kind of just wandered away, said she was going back to her hotel. All of this just sounds sketchy, right? They can't keep the story straight. They're adding parts to it. Coverage catapults into an even higher stratosphere after this. Any suspect in a crime such as this, changing his story in such a manner, knows more than he is sharing. There can be no other reason to change a story in such a drastic new direction. Everyone knew this, right? These are two different stories. We dropped her off in front of the hotel. Oh no, we dropped her off at the beach. Then, inside that first week, the story gets even bigger when two more men, Holiday Inn security guards, 30-year-old Nick John and 28-year-old Abraham Jones, are brought in for questioning. Why? Joran van der Sloot and the Kalpoes decide to add even more to the story. They now claim that when they left Natalee, they saw those two guards approach her. And just like that, all of a sudden, the feeling shifts to these two guards. All eyes are on them now. They took Natalee. They are responsible for her disappearance. Let's take a break here and come back with some breaking news in this 20-year-old true crime story that kind of broke the internet. Under Aruban law, the guards are arrested on first and second degree murder and kidnapping charges and detained. Imagine that. Just because several witnesses claim you were the last to be seen with a missing girl, who by all accounts could have taken off on her own, no one actually knew, you are charged with murder. The search for Natalee turns massive. And when I say massive, I mean it. Beyond the thousands on the island already involved in the search, including just about all law enforcement available, 50 Dutch Marines are deployed to the island to sweep the shorelines, working under the theory that she might have drowned. And several Dutch F-16s fitted with infrared imaging devices to scan the land for freshly dug graves cruise up and down the coastline. But there is no sign of Natalee, not one piece of physical or trace evidence. Every theory imaginable is posited on television night after night to simply keep people, feeding on the meat hanging from the stick. Van der Sloot and the Kalpoes raped her and killed her and fed her to the sharks. That others on the island helped them kill and bury her out to sea. That she was flown to Europe and trafficked. On and on and on and on this goes, night after night after night. Each new day, something new was on the internet about a Natalee sighting or a psychic talking about where she is. I cannot imagine the torment just the coverage alone must have caused her family. It's traumatic. 2 weeks into this thing, it is clear Natalee Holloway is not coming back. All right? She didn't take off on her own. She didn't stumble into the ocean and drown. When it becomes obvious that the security guards are likely scapegoats, and look, these guys are men of color. And, that narrative of blaming them is driven completely by Van der Sloot, who I believe is a racist. So with the security guards now let out of jail, the focus shifts back to the Kalpoe brothers and Van der Sloot. And as Van der Sloot starts talking again as mid-June comes to pass, and his background of an entitled life with some teenage sexual aggression and trouble is unearthed, the talking heads begin to speculate that he needs to be the focal point of the investigation. This thing begins and will end with Joran Van der Sloot. While authorities continue searching the coastline hoping to find any clue whatsoever, on June 15, 2005, the house Joran Van der Sloot lives in with his father, a Dutch judge, is searched. Investigators seize 2 vehicles, several computers, cameras, files, and film. But there is no sign of Natalee. Not a hair clip, not a strand of hair, DNA, anywhere in the Van der Sloot household or vehicles. After those hotel security guards were released on June 18, one of them tells police that he spoke to one of the Kalpoe brothers while in lockup, and that the brother is now claiming that he, his brother, and Van der Sloot hadn't taken Natalee to the hotel, as they had said. But he and his brother left Natalee with Van der Sloot at the beach near her hotel, and then they drove home. That accusation put the entire case on Van der Sloot's back. Confident Van der Sloot had information, Aruban authorities went after Van der Sloot's father, Paulus Van der Sloot, and they arrest him on June 22nd, thinking he helped his son dispose of Natalee's body. Then they arrest a local DJ. Why not add one more? Who's brought into the case by one of the Kalpoes. 4 days later, all of them are released. You see how this thing goes? It's almost like scripted for television at this point to keep people watching. Everyone now believes that Aruban authorities have very little control over the case, which is quite obvious. I think another pretty damn obvious assumption at the time was that payoffs and corruption was likely the norm within certain Aruban circles. Satish Kalpoe then admits he lied to police. You think? He goes back in for an interview and changes his story yet again. He now says that he and his brother dropped both Van der Sloot and Natalee off at the hotel, and that was the last time they saw either of them. But then a local gardener working at a racket club nearby, walks into the police station and signs a sworn statement claiming he saw all three men in a car near the club at around 2:30 a.m. that night, but not Natalee. The problem with this sworn statement by the gardener is that the Kalpos had told police they were already home by then. This merry-go-round of misinformation, lies, and potential relevant information goes on and on and on. Everybody is talking, it seems, but none of what they have to say adds up to finding Natalee Holloway or even a clue to her whereabouts. Clearly, the Kalpos and or Joran van der Sloot know something. Just imagine this. As time goes on, 2020, Dateline, 48 Hours, the cable news networks, morning shows, all focused on this. You could not get away from it. A hair is found, not hers. A pond is drained, nothing is found. No matter how much time passes, even if there is nothing new coming out, the story just seems to grow and grow. And I have to give credit to Beth Holloway, Natalee's mother, who kept the story at the forefront of the media's attention, granting interviews and talking about the case whenever she could. She knew that if she did that, pressure would continue to be put on the number one suspect, Joran van der Sloot. By now, most everyone believes he is behind Natalee's disappearance and might have had help from his father disposing of Natalee's body somewhere. I mean, Nancy Grace is absolutely venomous during this time in her tawdry, overly aggressive style of yelling and just tossing out accusations. She attacks van der Sloot nightly, viciously. If you can go back and watch some of this stuff, watch it. She's just kind of spitting and shouting and wow. The Kalpos and van der Sloot remain behind bars in Aruba until September, when they are set free under the condition they remain in Aruba. Now, I need to fast forward because the case is just so extensive, nuanced, and full of the same he said, she said. We just don't have time for it all. But look, I want to get us to the most current developments, which are pretty big. February 2006, van der Sloot goes on Fox News, relishing in his celebrity. I mean, the guy just absolutely loves being on television. Granting an interview to another freaking flamethrower like Nancy Grace, Greta Van Susteren. In that interview, van der Sloot talks about drinking the night away with Natalee, how he went out to the beach with her after, but that he left her there alone on the beach and went home. He says he has no idea what happened to her after that. Bullshit. That's what that is. And everybody knew it. The Holloway family then sued the Kalpo brothers for wrongful death in a Los Angeles court, a case that is dismissed because of jurisdiction, obviously. The hope there was to get them to talk. Van der Sloot, now in the Netherlands going to school, along with the Kalpos, are arrested in November 2007 after what is said to be incriminating evidence against them is uncovered. They are released in December because that evidence turns out to be nothing. Then, in a major twist, a hidden camera interview with van der Sloot emerges. I remember this like it was yesterday. It's just crazy. It's one of those jinx moments, you know? Talking to a reporter who was stealthily recording the interview, van der Sloot says that Natalee collapsed on the beach and he could not revive her. So he and a friend, in a panic, disposed of her body out to sea. We know that when a suspect tells a lie, there is some truth to it. So the takeaway here is that Natalee will never be found because van der Sloot buried her at sea. I think that's what everybody kind of felt after this tape emerges. After being told he was being recorded, van der Sloot retracts the comments and claims to have been lying. I made it up. In March 2010, another major event in the case occurs via an email from van der Sloot to the Holloway family. And van der Sloot now tries to extort money out of the Holloways, writing that he will tell them where Natalee's body is in exchange for $225,000. The family sets up the first payment of $25,000, and then they call the FBI. In a sting setup, the Holloway's lawyer agrees to meet Vandersloot and give him the payment. They converge in Aruba. Vandersloot says that his father buried Natalee's body in the foundation of a local house being built at the time. The lawyer then wires the first installment, $25,000, to Vandersloot's offshore account. They got him. Meanwhile, Vandersloot heads to Peru for a poker tournament. The dude has a gambling problem, which makes him now vulnerable, and I think they all know it. While he is in Peru at the casino, he meets 21-year-old Stephanie Ramirez, a local girl. And guess what? Stephanie goes missing. No shock there. Video surfaces of Vandersloot entering his hotel room with Stephanie, but only Vandersloot emerging at a later time. Realizing that Peruvian authorities are onto him after they find Stephanie's brutalized body, Vandersloot dyes his hair blonde and flees Peru and is now on the run. He is caught in Chile and extradited back to Lima, Peru, where he gives a detailed account of what happened inside his hotel room, admitting to murdering the girl. So now we have an admitted killer. He claims that someone had sent him a random nasty text calling him a killer while he and Stephanie were in the room partying. Stephanie saw the text and began freaking out, apparently realizing who she was with. Quote, "She struck me on the left side of my head with her fist," Vandersloot admits. "At that moment, with my right elbow, I hit her in the face exactly on top of her nose. I think she started to faint." Really? You think? "And then I grabbed her from the neck and strangled her for a minute." He says there was blood everywhere. Seemingly enjoying giving the confession, he then continues, adding, quote, "I get on top of her, and with both hands I begin to strangle her. After that, I throw her to the floor, but she keeps breathing. At that moment, I take off my shirt, put it on her face, pressing on it. I don't remember for how long," end quote. Between that confession and the year 2012, Vandersloot is extradited to the U.S. to face extortion charges for the $25,000 he was sent in exchange for the location of Natalee's body. He is then found guilty of Stephanie Ramirez's murder and sentenced to 28 years in a Peruvian prison. By then, Natalee Holloway is officially declared dead by a judge in Alabama. Once Vandersloot serves that sentence in Peru for murder, he will be sent to the U.S. to face the extortion and fraud charges. In 2014, Vandersloot marries a young girl he meets in Peru while serving his sentence. She is pregnant. By May 2023, 18 years after the entire Natalee Holloway case began, Peruvian officials agreed to extradite Joran Vandersloot to the U.S. to face those extortion and wire fraud charges. This is before, he serves a sentence. But this move isn't about those charges. It's designed to get Vandersloot on the record and hopefully, finally, admit to everyone what happened to Natalee. By June 8, 2023, Vandersloot is on his way to America. By June 9, Joran Vandersloot is in an Alabama courtroom where he pleads not guilty to the fraud and extortion charges. Between June and October 2023, discussions abound as a deal is being worked out for Vandersloot to give the Holloway family the answers they have waited so long for in exchange for a deal. Vandersloot knew that he would, if he played his cards right, one day be able to walk out of that Peruvian prison and still have time left for a life with his wife and child. If he got out and had to face those charges in Alabama, he would essentially be going from one prison to another and likely not ever see the light of day again as a free man. So he agrees to give the court a full confession of what happened to Natalee in exchange for the other charges to go away. I mean, that's really what this is. And now what you have, all these years later, it appears as though he is finally ready to talk about what he did to Natalee and where her body is. We'll go through that incredible confession and wrap this thing up right after a short break.
us. She asked to go back to her hotel, but I was just trying to get dropped off a little bit further away from her hotel so we could walk back to her hotel, and I might still get a chance to be with her.
Okay.
That's what I was hoping for.
Okay. So what happens?
Deepak drops me off at a place a little right of the Marriott Hotel known as the Fisherman's Huts. This place is not so far from, the next hotel is the Marriott, and the next hotel after that is another Marriott, which is a timeshare, and then it's the...
It's important to note here that in October 2023, as Jorn van der Sloot, 36 years old at the time, talks about what happened to Natalee Holloway that night, her parents are listening in real time. That is such a profound act of courage, I think. I do not know how they did this. I don't know many people who could. Remember, he's about to tell them what he did to their daughter.
Well, we walk along the beach.
Do Deepak and Satish get out, come with you? What happens to them?
Deepak and Satish leave. They leave. They go back to their home. I assume they go back to their home. They get in their car and they leave. I'm actually with Natalee walking along the beach. I find a space before we get to the Marriott Hotel, where I lay her down. We lay down together in the sand, and we start kissing each other. I get her to kiss me again. We start kissing each other, and I start feeling her up again, and she tells me no.
You can hear the absolute flat effect in van der Sloot's voice, as if this is just another day in the life of a two-time killer. There's no emotion, certainly no remorse or empathy. He is fulfilling an obligation that will benefit him. Yet, on the other hand, finally, after all the speculation, all the dead ends in this case, the rumors and lies and years, all the Nancy Grace bloviating about this guy, right? Here is Natalee Holloway's killer describing what happened on that night she disappeared.
She doesn't want me to feel her up. I insist. I keep feeling her up either way. And she knees me. She ends up kneeing me in the crotch. When she knees me in the crotch, I get up on the beach and I kick her extremely hard in the face. She's laying down unconscious, possibly even dead, but definitely unconscious. And I see right next to her there's a huge cinder block laying on the beach. I take this and I smash her head in with it completely. Her face basically, collapses in. Even though it's dark, I can see her face is collapsed in. Afterwards, I don't exactly know what. I'm scared. I don't know what to do, and I decide to take her and to put her into the ocean. So I grab her and I half pull and half walk with her into the ocean. I push her off. I walk up to about my knees into the ocean, and I push her off into the sea. After that, I get out. I walk.
I mean, for me, there's nothing left to say after hearing such a sad, frightening, and alarming confession that took almost 20 years to get from a sociopath. As someone who lived through this case and recalls every twist and turn and how it unfolded in real time, I am glad Natalee's parents and her family got the answers they were searching for. That's the one thing I'm really happy about. Van der Sloot claims he wanted to do this because he is a changed man. Now, a born-again Christian. Hallelujah, brother. Yeah, brother Van der Sloot. He's seen the light. But I am here to say, go back to your fucking cave and disappear into the dark abyss of that disgusting prison where you are. And we don't want to hear from you again. I would be remiss if I were not to warn any female in this dude's path when he gets out of prison, and he will, to run as far away from him as you can. And that includes his baby mama, who I think faces the gravest risk from this maniac. One of the reasons he could not be charged in Natalee's case is that Aruba, for God knows what reason, has a 12-year statute of limitations on murder. Of course, he knew this. His father was a judge. He knew. He just had to wait it out for 12 years. So he won in that regard. But again, the family now at least does not have to wonder any longer what happened. Distraught and very emotional, Beth Holloway lashed out at Van der Sloot during her impact statement portion of his confession. Quote, "You are a murderer. Remember that every time that jail door slams shut, you are a killer. You didn't get what you wanted from Natalee, sexual satisfaction. So you brutally killed her." Outside the court, she told reporters that Natalee's case was finally over as far as she was concerned. Quote, "Joran Van der Sloot is the killer," end quote. We'll be back next week with another episode. If you want to listen to past episodes of the show, read about us, or get the latest news, go to crossingtheline.biz, where you'll find full access to everything. And always remember, be safe, be aware. There are so many resources available for this case, it's mind-numbing how much information is out there. For the facts, I relied on the Associated Press, a multitude of articles, two of which are Missing Alabama Teen Went to Beach with Men Before She Disappeared. Associated Press, June 10, 2005. No byline. Alabama Girl Missing in Aruba Called Dependable by Friends. Associated Press, June 3rd, 2007, no byline. I also use court records and transcripts. The audio you've heard is from the court record. Crossing the Line is produced by M. William Phelps, LLC, and Talk Boom Productions. Written and executive produced by me, M. William Phelps, with Catherine Law. Audio mixing and mastering by Matt Russell.